Blessed Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, for those of you not in my parish, dedicated here to the Heart of Mary, you celebrate this feast on Saturday following the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. But here in this church, the Church of the Sacred Heart of Mary, we will observe the feast, as it were, twice. Saturday is its proper day, but also on Sunday because it's our patronal feast and we can transfer that to Sunday. This parish dates from 1847, and it was given the name of the Sacred Heart of Mary at that time. During the 19th century, there were different words, different titles used for the Heart of Mary. The Holy Heart of Mary, the Sacred Heart of Mary, as this parish was named, and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. There is, in fact, in our Archdiocese of Kingston, another parish also with the title Sacred Heart of Mary. On the 70th anniversary of the parish in 1917, this magnificent church that we're standing in today was built, the third church on this site. And it kept the title Sacred Heart of Mary. Now, 1917 is a very important year because that was the year of the apparitions, the Marian apparitions to the children at Fatima. So while that was going on in the summer of 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, the parishioners here on Wolfe Island were building this magnificent church. Now, at Fatima, Our Lady spoke of her Immaculate Heart. She asked for consecration to her Immaculate Heart. So after 1917, that's the term we use for the Heart of Mary, the Immaculate Heart of Mary. But in a few places that are older than the Fatima apparitions, like this one, we still use the term Sacred Heart of Mary, but of course it is the same heart of our Blessed Mother. Now, in 1917, this church was built. Almost 100 years later, in 2016, we had a small fire here, and so in 2017, the centennial year of the Fatima apparitions, we had to repaint this church and we put in a new decorative design precisely to emphasize the links between the church, the Heart of Mary, and the apparitions at Fatima, asking for our Mother's divine protection under that title of her Immaculate Heart. And you'll recall that in 2017, the bishops of Canada reconsecrated Canada to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So the history of our time, the history of our church in our time, and the history of this particular physical church is very much tied up in devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The Heart of Mary, we might say, is a heart full of love. We might say the same thing of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, a heart full of love. What's the connection? Well, we might say that it's more than just a mother's love for her son and a son's love for his mother, but rather that the Sacred Heart of Jesus symbolizes, represents, and in fact is the love of God for his creation, and in particular for the whole human race, and more in particular for each individual soul. We might say then the Immaculate Heart of Mary represents, symbolizes, is a response to that love of God. We might say that Mary's heart, pure and immaculate, actually is the response of creation, the response of the human race to the love of God. So in the Sacred Heart of Jesus, we have God's love for mankind, and in the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we have that love returned on behalf of the whole human race to God himself. For those of us here then in our parish, on our patronal day, we ask to sort of live between those two hearts, between the love of God going out to the world and the love of Mary returning from the world to God himself. And we invoke the protection, the mantle, the intercession, the love of the Heart of Mary, that we might always live between those two hearts, actually. That conversation of love between the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the love of God for the world, and the love of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the love of the world, you could say, returning to God. In our parish here, we feel close to the Sacred Heart of Mary, our patronal title, but we're not the only ones who do, evidently. And so on this feast, our patronal feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I wish for you the same thing I wish for my own parishioners, to live always between the love, between the hearts of Jesus and Mary. Praised be Jesus Christ, now and forever.